Alright, hello everyone, how's it going tonight? Welcome back to another live stream by Force 13. Right now we're covering all the activity in the tropics. We currently have 5 active tropical cyclones, a couple other invests. It's pretty active right now. 2 systems making landfall, 2 others threatening land. Right now we're joined tonight by Nathan, Lee, and David. How do you guys say hello?
Good evening.
Hi.
It's about time I got to be a guest.
Yeah, you're finally back. I know you don't have as much time, so do you want to briefly go over something?
Well, I just thought I'd do a bit of a intro of sorts. Although there's a few interesting stats that I brought along as well. The Western Pacific, with that massive flurry that it's been having in the last several weeks, has made it the the most active West Pacific season to date since 1996, and another storm, 91W. Has that formed yet?
JTWC says it hasn't formed yet. It's likely to form, but not in the next day.
If that gets numbered, that is going to be that will push it beyond 1996 to make it the busiest season to date since 1971. But it's still a long way from that particular season, which had 27 cyclones by now. But 22 already here is 22, isn't it? Pretty impressive.
Yeah, it really is. And West Pacific right now, we have 2 systems there making landfall right now, or just made landfall recently. Babinka and Rumbia, both of which intensified a bit beyond their forecast peaks. Babinka got to 60 knots, Rumbia got to 50. Both made landfall earlier today. Although what we see on the screen right now is Tropical Storm Ernesto now completed its transition earlier today. Looks like it's probably peaking right now before it starts to enter sharply colder waters and higher wind shear. David, you have been looking at the storm today, right?
Yes, I have on the screen some track guidance, early cycle intensity guidance. The majority of them have it as tropical storm, although there's one outliner that had it up to Cat 1 system, but the majority of them are showing a downward trend.
Yeah, the storm is expected to go post-tropical within the next day at this point. Nathan, what are you thinking with it right now?
National Hurricane Center thinks sooner.
They say within a day. They say maybe by tomorrow morning.
12 hours.
They say I can pull up the 5-day track graphic. They say it's going to be extra tropical by this morning or by tomorrow morning Eastern time. It's still looking tropical right now, but it's not really has convection fully around it at this point.
Looks okay.
Yeah, we have it at 45 miles an hour currently. And here's the track forecast.
I was alerted by Strat to a particular question that happened before the stream.
Yeah, it was the one about we have more 155s than 160s.
That's actually not true. I just did some. I just looked it up, and I think it was 106 storms from Force 13's analysis that we've rounded to 155 miles an hour, and I think it was 138 or something like that that rounded to 160. So there is no conspiracy going on about not making things a Category 5, and for the record, I did a quick analysis when I returned back here a few days ago, and agree with the National Hurricane Center's analysis for Hector 155.
Yeah, so
Force 13 HQ has been open since Tuesday for internal operations only. Friday is the first day for me probably back here.
Yeah, trust me when I say we're really excited to have you back. By the way, David, just a quick mention, if you're trying to screen share, you don't have screen share on.
Alright, but before I say, I just want to come back to Tropical Storm Ernesto. I'm just reading some of the information, and there is a window that it's going to intensify slightly.
Yeah, the National Hurricane Center said that there's a chance it intensifies slightly while it goes extratropical. And that's why their forecast peak with the system is 50 miles an hour as an extratropical system, even though it's 45 miles an hour right now. And here you
Right.
have the screen share up that I'll pull up for you. There you go. So that's the intensity model guidance right now. What is that? Is that the ship's? Is that the ship's 5?
Yeah, the
Can I
ship
say
is
that?
actually showing Cat 1.
That's
Oh,
a major
don't-
The green
outlier.
one?
No,
No, wait.
ignore that. Ignore that.
Ignore
Ignore that.
Alright.
Ignore
Um,
that.
See, 45 knots is really the peak
Right,
that
so
shows
anyway,
its satellite
we're gonna
imagery
do-
of the system. So that's satellite imagery of the system. Over its progression, you'll actually see that directly next
Yep.
to my face as well. This shows the most recent hours as it's transitioned fully into a tropical storm. Not as much drier in the core, it has convection around most of it now. But they do expect as it heads into significantly colder sea surface temperatures that it's going to die off pretty quickly. I'm actually going to transition over to some of the storms that are actually going to be threatening land at this point. We have tropical
Before you do
storm-
that, I just want to
Yep, go ahead.
butt in because I forgot to do something pretty important, and that is commend the team's performance whilst I've been away. There's been a glut of videos to deal with all of the activity that has been occurring in the last 2 weeks, and as far as I'm aware, I've obviously not had time to see everything, but they've been of good quality, and I was very impressed with Strat's ability to live stream.
Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it.
And it makes two of us, and good to...
Anyway, onto the action.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's surprising in general
yes,
because...
non-stop.
Yeah. Alright, so another more serious system to look at that has the potential impact land. I'll pull up my screen right now. Instead of yours, David, is going to be Tropical Storm Lane in the Eastern Pacific.
Alright, we're going to have a look at it.
Looks like, according to the National Hurricane Center, that it probably will become a hurricane shortly. It's definitely looking better defined. Ragged eyes starting to form. Here's the satellite imagery for it right now. They do expect it right now to peak as a Category 3 storm, 120 miles an hour before starting to weaken at the end of the track time. If I pulled it up quickly just to show you guys, here's going to be the 5-day forecast track for Tropical Storm Lane, soon hurricane.
Yeah, and at the moment it doesn't look like a second Hector in the sense that, first of all, it doesn't look like it's going to be as strong, and secondly, it doesn't look like it's going to pass the date line. So it's not going to be, we don't think yet, it's going to be 2 in a row for the basin crosses.
Yeah.
And I think that would be unprecedented. It's the first time. I mean, the only one obviously you've got John, and then you've got Dora of 1999. I can't think of any since then that have gone from East Pack to West Pack, but I may be wrong on that.
I think there was one more, I
Genevieve.
forget it as well.
Genevieve.
But I think including Hector, there's 4 that have gone all the way from the east to west.
No, I forgot about Genevieve. Genevieve
Yeah.
did it.
So it would be pretty unprecedented if you had 2 storms do it in one season, considering how hard
Yeah.
it is for that to happen.
But it's rarely seen. Although Genevieve didn't last as a proper
Yeah.
storm for that time as well. You could discount that. Depends on what you go by.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I'd say fortunately right now for Hawaii, again, it looks like they're going to dodge a second bullet within the time span of 2 weeks. Most models
Hopefully,
right now
not
indicate,
guaranteed yet.
It's not guaranteed, but most models right now indicate that the storm will pass, in terms of latitude, very similar to Hector, just a little bit south of the islands, which, they're not in the cone yet. That could possibly change in the next day or two as the storm continues westward. But, some of the models do indicate that there could be at least tropical storm sustained winds on the Big Island for some time. So hopefully that doesn't full out and happen. But time will really tell with that. Here's satellite imagery of Lane's history right now. It's developed pretty gradually over the past couple of days, but it's started to look more and more impressive, potentially becoming a hurricane within the next couple of hours.
Well, have you seen the visible imagery today?
I have seen some of the visible imagery, and I'll actually pull that up as well. It's looking pretty decent if you're
You
looking
can see
at
the eye
infrared.
developing.
Yeah, in infrared, it doesn't really tell the same story just because convection looks a lot more jagged in it. But if you look at the visible imagery, which I pulled up right here, you can definitely see an eye forming, much better organized than it was yesterday. and it's mostly in line with the National Hurricane Center's forecast for potential rapid intensification with the system. It's obviously in very favorable environment right now, low wind shear, warm waters. So seeing it gather its activity together like this isn't really that surprising to see at this time.
And Strat, adding to what you've mentioned about Lane, moderate mid-level humidity, rapid intensification is a distinct possibility, as mentioned about the eye. The National Hurricane Center's forecast is basically an update from the previous one on the high side of the guidance and could be conservative. So their technical information is showing the environment is good for rapid intensification.
Yeah, and a lot of the models show it doing that at this point. Let's actually go down and show it. Here's going to be on my screen right now the models for forecast intensity of Lane. Actually zoom in on it just a little bit. And you can see most of the models here take it up to high in Category 2 or Category 3 at this point. This is 18Z, so this was just a few hours ago. You have an outlier taking it to Category 4, but it's likely at this point that that won't really happen. The system is expected to peak as a Category 3, start to decline by in between day 4 and 5, really, as it reaches its peak, starts to encounter a somewhat less than favorable environment for it. And after 5 days you can't really say anything for too certain, but short term it looks like the storm will definitely become another powerful one, but hopefully come to the point where it misses the islands, although it's not really certain yet. It's too far out to really say whether or not Hawaii will be in the line of fire or not with this storm. We do have actually other storms that we need to cover as well. Western Pacific, we've just had 2 storms make landfall today. The one you'll see on my screen right now is Tropical Storm Rumbia, made landfall right on Shanghai earlier today as a 50-knot system, I think that's 60 miles an hour about. It's still producing pretty heavy rain in the area. It's supposed to move almost due west, just a bit north of west over the next day or so. Not that quickly either. Probably going to be a pretty big rainmaker for the area. If I pull up the Joint Typhoon Warning Center warning graphic for you, see this is just a little bit old. It made landfall really not too long ago. Gave over 50 knot sustained winds to Shanghai for a bit of time. Definitely gale force winds for sure. David, I know you're looking a lot in the Western Pacific, so you've been tracking Rumbia pretty closely. What are you looking at with it?
I'm just trying to bring up the information. So what one are we looking
Rumbia.
at? Rumbia. All right. Just you continue and I'll see what's going on with the local
so
weather office.
Nathan's probably been keeping track of it too, but Rumbia made landfall pretty recently in Shanghai at its peak intensity of 50 knots. That wind may or may not have reached its heart of Shanghai. Looks like it just passed just a little bit south to it according to the JTWC track forecast. But it was producing a pretty significant area of gale force winds that did encircle all of Shanghai. The system did actually look a lot more impressive on satellite imagery in the past day. Before that, it was more of a broad and elongated system, but it really got its act together up into the 24 hours until landfall. In general, looking like a moderate to strong tropical storm on satellite imagery, which is what it turned out to be. This is the 3rd storm in the past month, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, that's hit the Shanghai area.
I don't know. I've not been around in the last month, probably.
Because Yagi hit them, what was it, like 4 days ago in the same place. Now you have Rumbia. Zhengdari hit Shanghai as well. That's the other one I was thinking of. So you have, although fortunately all of them haven't really been that intense. I think Rumbia is actually the strongest one to hit them, so not really that much in terms of wind, but a lot of rain for the area.
Of course, you have Maria further south.
Yeah, Maria's a bit further south as well, but this whole area of the in terms of latitude, central east coast of China has been hit pretty hard in the past month and a half to 2 months. The other storm making landfall right now, or has just made landfall recently, is Tropical Storm Babinka, which definitely exceeded the intensity forecast and reached 60 knots earlier today before making landfall south of Hanoi. Lots of heavy rain being dumped on the region right now. Finally moving away after being in the region for about a week. So really dangerous flooding conditions, mudslides here in the region for sure with Babinka. But it's finally starting to move away at this point. Joint Typhoon Warning Center's forecast track showed it that the last update just offshore. It's made landfall since then. Tropical storm gale force sustained winds just missed Hanoi, the heart of the city, fortunately. But the system actually did move a little bit south of the forecast from yesterday. That's why since then it's continued to move westward inland and is probably going to dissipate within the next 2 days. Going to weaken pretty quickly from here on out. But as a system that's dropped a lot of rain in the past week here, especially right after we see Son-Tin hit the region last month, a lot of big concerns for flooding. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, there's just no respite for the Vietnam southern region of China. Strat, I do have some flaters on Babinka.
Yeah, I pulled it up. And you'll see there's been a flare-up of convection actually as the storms made landfall. We were talking about it briefly before we went live. That's a small area of past negative 90-degree cloud tops, which is really intense thunderstorms and convection activity there. You don't usually see negative 90-degree, or at least I haven't really seen it very often with tropical systems, but it does of course happen. This is an example of it. Fortunately, it's not with an as intense system in general.
Well, I would say if it happens anywhere, it's in the South China Sea and in the deep tropics and in the South Pacific usually.
Yeah, it's not usually something you see in the Atlantic.
People who are used to seeing the Atlantic generally has the least cold cloud tops for the storm's intensity out of anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and we're seeing that Rumbia, just a lot of rain with the system. I think a system that we really should be keeping a close eye on though is definitely going to be Solik 22W.
Yes.
Potentially a really big threat for Japan. I'll pull up the satellite imagery right here for the system. It's about to become a typhoon within the next 24 hours, and the JTWC's peak intensity forecast has gone up for it by 30 knots from the last time we streamed today. They now expect it to peak as a Category 4 storm on the Saffir-Simpson scale, 115 knots at day 3. It's definitely posing to be a big potential threat for southern Japan. The storm forecast track has moved west. It's important to note, though, that since it's 5 days out, the cone ranges from east of Kyoto to the very western parts of the Ryukyu Islands to Korea, and then the only what you see is right now is the only center of the forecast. It does show by day 5.
Another carbon copy of the last two storms.
Yeah, it's another storm that we see move north and then turn northwest and then west into Japan, which I think we noted in previous streams that doesn't really happen too often with these kinds of storms, but we've seen a pattern of these occur this season. Right now it shows that,
you have different patterns each
year, yeah.
year, but I'm just trying to remember one particular season that had a similar setup, which you'll want to come back to later.
Right now, though, by day 5, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center is expecting that typhoon-sustained winds will be reaching the very southwest of Japan. Gale force winds extending significantly inland at that point if this track is 100% correct. Odds of that, though, are not absolute. If you look to the far left hand of the screen, you'll see a GFS model run of the storm. You'll see it stall out around days 2 to 3. That's in line with the current forecast as steering weakens before getting another move to the northwest. I think the GFS right now peaks it as a Category 3 storm, right around it making landfall, which could pose a pretty large danger for the area. I'm actually going to pull up a computer model right now, and here's a close-up of the GFS run of the system. This is what it shows right now. Shows it becoming a typhoon within 30 hours of 18Z, although it's probably going to be sooner. It's important to note with the GFS that its pressure is usually not near correct at all. Keep in mind, this shows a 901 millibar system. That's obviously not going to happen with 110 knot winds. We've dealt with this for a long time. I remember last year when they were saying Noru would be in the 860s.
Enough of that.
Enough of that. But you see right now, the GFS brings it making landfall in southern Japan as a 110 knot storm, which could be a really big risk. The last I checked with the HWRF, it did show it significantly weaker, though. This is the HWRF. It shows it making landfall only as a 70 knot system, which, you know, it's really a big difference between the two. HWRF also has it a little bit further east at the same time. Regardless, you know, a really potential big threat for the area. I know models are looking it out to be a potential really strong system. And for southern Japan, we were talking of, you know, before you went on vacation, Japan had already been experiencing really bad problems with flooding. Was it July for southern Japan in particular was really bad. Then they had Jungdari come through the region and give even more rain, because Jungdari kind of stayed right around southern Japan for a day or two as well before starting to move west-southwest towards Shanghai. And then fortunately, most of Shanshan's convection stayed offshore, but, you know, that was another brush with a system in very short periods of time. You know, rain has been a big problem for Japan this summer. There's been a lot of flooding there.
It's not the closest of resemblances, but the year I was thinking of was 2002, when there were at least a couple of typhoons that were taking similar tracks to what we're looking at Sulik right now. Although they ended up being further east than what we've been seeing this year, and it's quite different. But that's the closest year out of the last 15 that come to mind.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you know, a couple of the models, you know, behind Sulik try to bring 91W somewhat in a similar path. It looks like they kind of develop another low pressure area with it, at least in this model run to the left hand of the screen, that kind of drags it westward a little bit. It's, you know, it's kind of hard to explain really. If I showed up here on the bigger screen, I might be able to get a better look at what I'm getting at. So here's the Western Pacific model run. If you look here, here's 91W. It shows it as a typhoon within 102 hours, while Sulik is approaching southern Japan.
Yeah, I saw models yesterday. I don't know if they're still saying the same thing, but had those two systems both hitting Japan.
Yeah, I mean, right now, this is what the GFS says, 102 hours. It has it as a typhoon. But what it does with 91W is it develops another weird system right with it, and that interacts with it, kind of making it do a loop before moving into southern Japan as well. I mean, it's pretty weird to see. If we go to the HWRF for 91W,
oh yeah,
it actually kills it off. It develops it into being nothing and being killed off.
Well, that's a first.
So we have a pretty big range of potential impacts that we could be seeing with 91W. It obviously hasn't formed yet. If you look at the JTWC website right now, yeah, the 3 active systems Leapy dissipated early today. 91W is expected to form, but beyond 24 hours. You know, it's not really set in stone yet how the system will do just because it hasn't formed yet. But, you know, if I go out of my way to get some satellite imagery of the system so we can take a better look at it, from what we've seen, it doesn't look particularly impressive on satellite imagery at the moment. There's not really much to it right now, actually. But, you know, that is expected to change over the coming days as, you know, becomes gradually better organized. I noticed David has the wind shear map mode up. Gonna want to show that.
Yes, I got the wind shear.
You want to talk about that?
Hold on a minute.
That's shear 10.
Didn't we all conclude that these maps were useless?
I think you meant to show, which one is this? West Pacific. I think you mean the deep layer shear, which is what I'm going to have on my screen right here. So this is wind shear the systems are currently undergoing.
Deep line shear, then I've got the wind shear, then I've got the vorticity, and I've got the upper level divergence. But as my position is, when viewing models and information like this, caution needs to be applied. But the sim site is updated, the wind shear is updated 3 hours, I think.
Yep, every 3 hours. So here'd be the most recent wind shear map. Here's Rumbia making landfall. It was able to intensify because it was in a lower wind shear area for the past day. Definitely surprised with Babinka because it's been in not favorable conditions really. A lot of its convection has been stripped westward most of its life. So that was a bit unexpected. Solik is in favorable conditions in general. That's why we're seeing pretty quick intensification with it. And then 91W
That's one to watch. That's one to watch, that one.
Yeah, because right now it looks like it will continue to be in an area of lower wind shear Solik for the next few days, which is why they significantly upped their peak wind forecast from 85 knots to 115, which is a pretty big difference to see in one day. And then significantly further to the east, we have 91W, which is, it depends on which part you're looking at as 91W. Some of it's convection's in high wind shear, some of it's in low, depending on which one you're really looking at of it. What is this satellite
I've got
imagery we have,
91W.
David? That's 91W?
91W?
Alright, let's search some visible satellite imagery of that. Do you want to give a quick rundown of it?
91. It's
It's a bit
starting.
sloppy.
Alright, I'll go with sloppy.
Sloppy.
Tropical. So
That's another one to watch, though.
Yeah, 91W. The Western Pacific is, you know, really active. When you went away on
Yeah,
vacation...
but however, what I saw from the model runs, I don't know whether it's still the case or not, but there's going to be a big gap in activity after the current systems around the world that are active have gone.
I mean, I'm really hoping for that. It's just, you know, I think we would keep in mind, though, when you were going on vacation, none of these systems were initially forecast to form long-range models. So, you know, initially when you were leaving, we expected not really a lot of activity to happen. And then, I guess things changed, really. I'm hoping it comes to fruition.
These particular storms weren't in the forecast period, but there were quite a few in between. Strat, I've not heard any questions from any viewers. Are there any?
Yeah, there's a few. It's just, you know...
Because
I
I'm
only have
not
one
looking at
monitor,
anything
so
like
it's
that.
hard for me to go back and forth.
Oh.
Let's see. So if you guys have any questions, make sure to tag Force13 and text. You know, if I'm looking at the live chat, it'll pop up in a highlight. Someone asked
If
me...
Strat's looking.
If I'm looking, yeah. Which means whenever David has screen share up, that's when I'm looking.
I'm running a 50-minute about vorticity, and you can clearly see that the vorticity remains healthy. But as we said, 91W to the, what is it, southeast?
Southeast, yeah. It's pretty elongated right now.
Sulik.
Let's see, we have a question here. Someone's asking if we think 91L will develop into a tropical depression at least. Let's actually...
91L.
99L. I mean...
That's the system approaching the Caribbean.
Yes, it is. Let me pull up some satellite imagery of it quickly. It's only got a 20% chance of development. I'm going to pull up the wind shear for it as well. So let's go back here. Here's the current satellite imagery of it. It's really disorganized in general. It's not really centralized. It is in a low wind shear environment and warm sea surface temperatures, but as the National Hurricane Center has highlighted, after day 2 to 3, as it approaches the Caribbean, it's going to encounter more hostile conditions. I think the thing impacting it the most, it doesn't really have any vorticity with it to note, really, a little bit to the south, but it doesn't really have strong spin with it in particular, which, you know, obviously you need spin to have a cyclone form. It doesn't really have that with it right now. It's more of just an open wave producing convection. So, you know, odds of it are 20% right now, you know, so unlikely to form. I think regardless of that, though, with tropical waves in general, they're always a watch for the islands because they do produce lots of rain and, you know, rip currents, rougher surfs, always a threat for power outages and such. You know, any damage could be impactful to some degree. So, always worth tracking these things a little bit, even though, you know, they aren't really expecting to really do much, at least with this one. See if we got any other questions with chat right now. Oh, God, I'm not even going to answer that question.
No.
No, you saw what I was referencing, didn't you?
It can't be good if that's the reaction.
No, someone asked if there's going to be an Irma 2.
No.
No.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
I knew straight away it'd be something like that.
But we do have the Atlantic
Harvey
right
2
now.
or Maria 2. No.
I mean,
Not
technically,
that kind of season.
And 99L is what, 600, about 600 miles east-southeast of the Windward Islands. It's associated with a tropical wave. Some development of this system is possible over the next couple of days, whilst it moves west-northwest and around 15 miles per hour towards the islands. By late Saturday, unfavourable environment conditions should limit the chances for additional development whilst the system moves over the eastern Caribbean Sea. And 48 hours, 20%, 5 days, 20%.
Yep. I saw another quick question. I think this is the last thing we're going to say with 99L really before we move on. Someone asked if 99L would develop in the Gulf. If you look at the models, this is the GFS I'm going to pull up on my screen right now for you. I'm pretty sure none of the models show that. This would be 99L right here. You go all the way out, nothing develops there. If you go in the Euro, nothing's in the Gulf. You don't really see anything with it. At least with the GFS, there's something interesting to note. If you go out to about 5 days, is you see another area of low pressure right where Ernesto is right now, in very similar location to where Debbie was.
I just saw David's imagery there of Rumbia. I'd just like him to show it on the stream.
Yeah, which part of China is this in, David? Alright, I don't know if David's here right now, but this is Chinese satellite imagery. Not quite sure where this is, but it's pretty clear conditions right now in general.
That picture, that's Tokyo.
This is Tokyo.
Yeah.
Alright, not what I expected.
David's taken absent apparently. I have no idea what's going on.
Alright, well, while he's
earlier he was showing imagery of Rumbia, which looked interesting.
Yeah, well, while he's briefly absent.
As you said earlier, large wind field.
Yeah, Rumbia does have a pretty large wind field. If I pull up the Joint Typhoon Warning Center warning graphic quickly just to represent that, here it'll be right here. All Shanghai is encompassed in gale force sustained winds.
David, I'd like you to show us the Rumbia imagery once more.
Okay,
Oh,
let's
there
check.
he is.
You got something? Right, thank you.
Alright,
the
see this image
floaters?
pull-
Yes, what you had on a moment ago.
Okay, give me a
But
minute.
while David's loading that, it's important to note, gale force sustained winds surrounding the whole city. Significant rainfall with it as well. System organized pretty significantly within the past 24 hours. Before that, it was looking much more disorganized, but it got its act together at the last second, really, before landfall. Kind of really developed into something that, you know, if it had another day or so, could have potentially become a typhoon, but fortunately it didn't have that much time before land. Here's some satellite imagery I have right now before we switch over to David's. He's going to pull them up in a second. Which one are you going to show first, David?
What's the one with the Rumbia?
Yeah, which one are you going to show first with it?
Bring the floaters.
Alright, so...
Make sure it's something good.
Yeah. This is just
Okay.
infrared from RAM.
It is.
Much more round and organized than it was yesterday. It was pretty elongated back then. But more organized now. Here's some water vapor imagery right now, David. Do you want us to describe this one?
Well, it's looking pretty fierce for a tropical storm.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. If you, actually, you have was it? It's going to be to the top left corner. You'll see Rumbia a day ago, very disorganized at that point in time. But in the last 18 to 24 hours, it really managed to do something with itself. Let's see. And someone's asking quickly, in regards to this, if we want to check the sea surface temperature anomalies. Well, that imagery is up. I'll do that quickly. I just need to let the page load. Let's go here. So here's going to be the sea surface temperatures anomalies for the Western Pacific. Significantly above average in the Yellow Sea and Japanese Sea, but a bit below average most other places. So where you see Rambia right now making landfall a bit below average, Babinka is a bit below average, Sulik's below average
Probably
as well.
due to upwelling.
Yeah, there's been a lot of systems. That's definitely going to be it. But at least in regards to sea surface temperatures in these regions, Western Pacific tends to be really warm, so even if it's a degree or 2 Celsius below average, it's still going to be pretty conducive for development in general. Because if we go here to the Western Pacific actual map mode, you'll see constant areas of 29 and 28 degrees Celsius stretching all the way up to Beijing, past Tokyo, into the Japanese Sea. So even if it's a bit below average, it's not really going to be impacting
August,
that
September,
much.
never any danger for those sea surface temperatures. Although, you know, the strongest storms want the highest sea surface temperatures possible. So, you know, the seeing all of these systems active does reduce the chance of seeing some of the very top percentage of the system's strengths that we could possibly see. For instance, you know, something like one of, I don't know which one I'm thinking of in the open sea areas, but you know, some of the historic storms, the extremely strong ones, I don't think we're going to see. We might get another Category 5 or 2, however, but I don't think they're going to get much past 160.
Yeah, you know, usually, at least in the Western Pacific, you're going to try to look for 31s and 32s.
Although you might get some late season action. You never know.
That's true. I mean, the areas where you've seen the warmest sea
late
surface
season,
temperatures. Yep.
just to finish my point, anything goes.
What was it?
if
We
it's
had
in the lower
Mach 10 in
latitudes.
late season December?
Haiyan, late season, I'm talking things like that, Paca, blah, blah, whatever else.
Yeah, I mean, right now where you're seeing the warmest sea surface temperatures is in the eastern part of the West Pacific, where you haven't seen anything. Where you've seen a lot of the activity in the past month, you'll see kind of splotches of 27 trying to sneak in there a little bit just because of all the upwelling that's been happening. What is this? David, you're currently screen sharing a Babinka map from the Vietnam Weather Service?
I've been searching for information from the Vietnamese weather site, and they have Babinka. On the screen is the current chart, and they have it tropical depression in a few hours.
So they anticipate pretty quick weakening with the storm.
Yes, I'll just...
Well, it's over land, wouldn't expect anything else.
And under high wind shear as well, so that seems to be almost completely accurate.
Tropical depression today, 19.8 degrees north, 105 degrees west or east. Anyway, 56 kilometers an hour maximum sustained winds, and dropping to 28 on Saturday.
Yeah, and I noticed we got a quick other question. People are asking how many named storms we think will form in September in the Atlantic. Can't really guarantee anything at this point in the year.
Oh, you can guarantee something.
You can guarantee probably at least one storm, but we can't give
Oh dear.
an
I look
official
for
number.
conservatism here from Strat.
I know, I'm just saying you can't give a number when you don't have any models going into September yet. You'd probably expect at least one or
Well,
two.
I can give you our smooth projection based on the numbers we're expecting in the Atlantic this season, Force 13's numbers. Now, this is not necessarily a prediction, but it's a guide. and the guide is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 storms in September.
Really? Oh god.
That's the guide. Most active
You
month
know,
of the year.
speaking of that, I think there's something a little interesting to note in terms of development that, you know, has kind of caught my eye a little bit today. If you look at the GFS 18Z run and you go about 5 days out, a little bit less than or about, you'll see another storm, another area of low pressure with tropical storm sustained winds in the same area that Ernesto is right now.
Look, can we stop doing this?
I don't
We're killing
know.
everyone with all of these storms in the same area.
I'm
Debbie,
trying to
Ernesto?
keep up with them. And
Look at all these storm trackers out there. They're, you know, completely fed up of seeing the Debbies and Ernesto.
I think something interesting to note is that if a system were like this were to form, it would likely be subtropicals. It would be coming off a
Okay.
non-tropical low.
Another one. Another
This
one.
would tie the record for the most subtropical cyclones in 1 year in the Atlantic, and we wouldn't even be in September at this point. This would make 5 out of the 6 storms
It is
subtropical
actually,
at some point
you
in their
know,
lives.
when was it? I
probably.
mean, it's pretty rare enough to have an August subtropical storm.
We've had 2 of them, though. So it's even more rare.
Ludicrous.
And according to the GFS, there might be a 3rd one, which is pretty absurd to think about, really. But I thought I'd just like to bring that up. I don't really think other models are picking up on it, but pretty big nuisance if you ask me.
Well, we'll keep watching.
I think quickly, while we're in the Atlantic, though, we should quickly go back towards Ernesto just for a quick moment. Like we said earlier.
Why?
I don't know. I just like to point out, here's the satellite imagery probably peaking right now. Not too much to really focus on it in the near future. As it's, according to the National Hurricane Center, going to be gone by tomorrow morning. So, no more
I
updates to
bet there's
expect on this
some
one.
UK national newspapers saying it's going to hit as a hurricane, tropical and all.
It's probably going to get it's going to get absorbed and merged with the front, and then impact Ireland and the United Kingdom. But not as a system on its own.
here we are, Nathan. To put a spanner in the works. UK shock weather forecast. Tropical storm Ernesto head straight for Britain.
Is that actually a thing?
Alright, just stop. Just stop. Who wrote that?
UK
Who wrote it?
Express.co.uk.
What a surprise.
Yep.
The Daily Express is a banned substance when it comes to weather.
And bring storm-like weather conditions
said-
on Friday.
It said 2 weeks ago, when Hector was approaching Hawaii, ultimately to miss, that it would hit Hawaii the next day or something like that, and it already left a trail of destruction. A trail of destruction over
gotta be
the
kidding
eastern
me.
Pacific Ocean, I assume.
Oh, yes. Yes, I remember that one.
Oh, I can't
But
believe
the
that.
National Hurricane Center says that it
Anyway,
is
fake news.
to merge with a
Find another
convoy.
tabloid. Find another one.
Just another quick question. Someone's asking what a subtropical system is. Basically, it's a system that exhibits characteristics of both a tropical system and a non-tropical one. You'll see a warm core, but it likely will be not very symmetrical. You'll see a kind of a classic comma shape to the system. If you're looking right to the left of my webcam, you'll see what Ernesto was like a day ago. That's much more like a classic subtropical storm. You usually see more dry air in it, convection displaced from the center more, significantly larger wind field of maximum winds. Tropical system, warm core, convection more wrapped around the center, less dry air, can't really survive in higher wind shear like some subtropical systems can occasionally. That's about it with them, really. Alright, and I'm going to time this person out as well.
Aw.
They said an inappropriate message, I can't do it. But I think Going back to potentially threatening storms, we should probably look at Solik again quickly.
Before you do, can we just have a look at have another look at Tropical Storm Eunice, where you want the National Hurricane Center is saying they're actually indicating a slight intensification.
Yet they do say, was it mostly due to baroclinic forces, that it will intensify slightly while going post-tropical. They do expect a slight deepening of the system during the next 12 to 24 hours before it starts to weaken.
An increase in forward speed.
Yep. And going back to the Western Pacific, though, where we have...
Solik!
Yep, Solik. I was just showing the map forecast you had up.
Yeah, JMA.
What is the JMA saying about it right now? I know we usually look at the ATWC.
Okay, on the screen you've got...
That.
Go on,
the
Nathan.
JMA says it's a severe tropical storm.
Yep.
990 millibars, and for obvious intensification to occur to Category 1 by the 19th, which I think, as usual, is downplaying it.
985 for the 9th, for 09 UTC. Actually, that's today. Or
well, what
today.
What does the JMA's intensity guidance say? Because the JTWC has upped theirs really significantly since yesterday's stream.
Well, as I said, Category 1 in 2 days.
They say Category 1 in 2 days.
Possibly Category 2.
JTWC says 95 knots in 2 days, getting towards major hurricane status.
So they're about 20 miles an hour apart there.
Yeah. JTWC increased their maximum intensity forecast by 35 miles an hour or 30 knots from yesterday to today. They initially said it would be an 85 knot system peak at day 4 or 95 miles an hour. They've changed that to 115 knots or 130 miles an hour. So that would mean Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale by day 4. At day 5. Go ahead.
They have, just looking at the projection on the JMA on this severe tropical storm, they have central pressure dropping to at least 965.
Yeah, and for a Category 4 system, potentially that would, or at least what is the JMA saying they peak it at right now? Because that's different than the JTWC.
What did we say? 990.
What's their forecast peak?
No, that's the current. I think it was 965 millibars.
Which, it would definitely not be a 115 knot system if the JTWC is right. There's a pretty big discrepancy between the two right now.
And it's located 21.5 degrees north, 140.9 degrees east, 65 knots, 974 millibars.
Yep, I think that's pretty much in line with everyone else is saying. I think what we can do quickly is I'll actually show computer models quickly, just to get a grasp of the system. GFS is on the left side. GFS is on the far left side of the screen in the middle. It brings the system making landfall in southern Japan as a Category 3 storm. It says about 110 knots, or in between 105 and 110 knots at landfall for the GFS 18Z run, which is what you'd see right here. If we take a look at some of the other models, here's the European. You'll see it stalls the storm in between days 2 and 3 for the most part, then brings it to the northwest. Brings it a bit further west than the other models, actually, from what I've seen. Has it potentially skirt Korea. Keep in mind, this isn't the actual sustained winds, but this is the minimum sea level pressure forecast. They say it'll be at 955 millibars at day 5, right by Japan, which would definitely indicate a strong system. And let's see, what are some of the other models here? Let's take a look at the German as well.
Which is the Icon for our viewers.
This is actually... Okay, Icon hasn't updated for 2 days, so this is going to be useless. I don't know why it's done that, but we'll take a look at the HWRF quickly. 18Z here keeps it way weaker. Peaks it at 80 knots or so. 83 is what it shows right here. Has it make landfall as barely a typhoon at 120 hours further east than what we've been seeing with some of the other computer models. So discrepancy at this point going out to day 5 is really large. Because if you look at the cone, I'll pull it up again, you can range from central Japan to southern Ryukyu Islands to Korea, really wide area of where this storm could impact. But I think the one thing that's in common with most forecasts is that this will probably be an intense storm that is going to hit a region that's already been impacted pretty heavily in the past month and a half to 2 months. And then, we were talking a little bit earlier, another system right behind it that could potentially impact it, which would be 91W. And I don't know if you guys really want to talk about it, but we went over just a little bit earlier. It's expected to develop, but beyond 24 hours. This is what this orange circle means, medium. According to other models, it could become a typhoon. There's discrepancy, though, because, for example, here's the HWRF. It dissipates the storm rather quickly, while on the other side, you'll see the GFS takes it as a typhoon impacting Japan at the end of its run. So there's a pretty wide difference. What are you guys thinking about it?
But the HWRF is curious.
Yeah, I think it's different than most of the other models. If
they've put out.
If I go to the Western Pacific here, you'll see GFS has it as a typhoon. What does the Euro say? The Euro is also keen on having it be a weak storm as well. If you show the minimum sea level pressure, it doesn't really get a good grasp on it just because it isn't zoomed in enough, but it shows another weak system as well. So there's definitely variation between the two at this point. I don't know, David, if you can pull up forecast intensity for 91W, if you can do that. But that'd be nice to see. For now, yeah, what is it?
I was just thinking about models on 99L.
99L, okay. We can take a look at that.
I'm just looking to see if there's anything out there. They don't have any proper model runs.
Intensity guidance models, if you show them, there's a few that try to make it a Category 1 hurricane.
Really?
But
are they statistical models, though?
Yes, I'm assuming they are. I'll tell you which ones they are, and you can tell me the ship model, the IVCN, SHF5, and LGEM. Those are all statisticals?
LGEM?
Yeah.
Which one's that one now?
Is that Canadian?
I have
That's
no idea.
sometimes referred to as GEM, but I'm not sure about LGEM. I don't know about that one, but we'll discount it anyway.
But if we look
an
at
outlier without all the others there.
If we look at any of the forecast track models, here'd be the GFS right here. This would be what 99L is, this 1016 millibar pressure signal on the GFS. You see it shows nothing. If we go to the Euro, this little mess of vorticity would be 99L. European model shows nothing. If we go to the German, I don't know if it's updated here. It isn't updated, but if we go to the CMC, which is the trigger-happy model, it shows nothing.
Oh, please. Wow, that's rare.
It's
Nathan?
just... Yep.
Sorry, the LGEM is Logistical Growth Equation Model.
Yeah,
same input as the ships. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know some people in chat have been talking a lot about 99L. We have statistical model. I know people yesterday were really hyping it up, saying like, "Oh, these models show it," but they're just statistical models.
Doesn't warrant any hype.
As it enters the Caribbean, if I switch over to show wind shear, we'll be encountering pretty high wind shear, and this is expected to increase in the coming days as well. So, if it rapidly organized from yesterday, it would have had a chance because it's still in a good environment, but the odds are really not on its side at this point in time. But something that really does have a bit of an environment on its side is definitely going to be Tropical Storm Lane at this point. As we've gone on with the stream, I'll actually pull Visible Satellite because it tells a better story. The storms continue to look more and more impressive on satellite imagery as we've gone through the past hour. Close to a hurricane at this point, you would agree?
I'm just looking at some imagery too. Let's see here, what time frame is that? Not looking quite as good as it did a little bit earlier, although looks can be deceiving on the visible. You can clearly see on the visible. I'm not sure what you're looking at the moment. I can't see that.
Visible right here.
The southern side is broken, so there's certainly no complete eye wall.
Yeah, because if you look at the infrared, you'll be able to tell that pretty clearly. You don't really have a full eye wall at this point in time.
But you know, looking at it, it's very borderline for hurricane status now, and maybe another hour and it will be.
And what it really has going for it is in the next 3 to 4 days, it'll be in an area of very low wind shear. You can see that right here. This is the wind shear map. Lane is down here in the closer to the bottom. All green for at least the next 3 days. You can see at least where the storm's tracking in the near future. Wouldn't really anticipate any problems with intensification as it goes on, especially because it's in warm sea surface temperatures. Whether or not for its future impacts, though, as it starts to weaken as we get to day 5, too far out to say for certain, but everyone in Hawaii should be keeping their eyes on this system because the current models, and if I go here, back here, and go to some model spreads for it, you'll see models right now usually cluster it a bit to the south, but, you know, wind radius and rain extend significantly away from the storm center usually, so you could still be seeing some outer bands and impacts from this as well, even if it moves south. The GFS is keen on trying to take it a bit further north, though. You have some outliers from the GFS that bring it significantly closer to the mainland of Hawaii than you see the other models doing it. I know if you look in the bottom left, you'll see the computer model run from the GFS for it, and it just misses Hawaii with tropical storm force winds at that point. What do you think that it could possibly take, Nathan?
Say again?
What do you think in terms of steering what this storm could take, at least in terms of what the models are saying?
We're still talking about Lane?
Yeah.
I was thinking about this and sort of wandering away with those thoughts about what the chances were of a potential Hawaiian impact. I'd say still fairly low chance. And then after that, as I said earlier on in the hour, it most likely, almost certainly, won't reach the date line in the same way that Hector did, and it will zip up north, finding a weakness in the high pressure ridge up there.
Yeah, I know we were mentioning a little bit. It definitely looks like it almost certainly will be another storm that crosses into the Central Pacific, though.
The only thing I will say is that if it moves slower than predicted, that's bad news for Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean,
because there'll be more opportunity for it to turn north if it's got more time to do so. If it goes faster than it's predicted to go, then Hawaii will be more in the clear.
Yeah, right now it's moving westward at 13 miles an hour, according to the National Hurricane Center. Hopefully it manages to maintain that through the next couple of days. You know, the slower it moves, obviously, the more dangerous it is for Hawaii, as Nathan said. That's actually going to wrap things up today, though, guys. We're out of time. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out to watch today. I noticed we had a pretty decent viewership, so thank you to everyone for supporting the channel. Links to everything will be down below, so thanks for the support. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Normal service resumes at Force 13 HQ beginning tomorrow, and we'll probably see a lot more movement on the channel during that time as well. And of course, if the storm's hot up, then so will we. Well, they sort of already are, but we'll stay on top of it.
All right. Take care, everyone.